Hey guys, Danny here. Today we are going to be doing one of my favorite walks throughout all of Sydney. This is what I like to call a suburban rainforest. Let's go check it out. What I really love about this place is today it's like 40 degrees, but just under the canopy of these eucalyptus trees, and as we get further down this little creek, it's kind of like a suburban canal, you'll see that the canal kind of fades away and it becomes a little bit more natural. Council have incorporated this feature into the natural landscape, and as the terrain around here kind of heads down into this creek section, everything kind of feels like it's growing naturally around this urban-made environment. Now I've come here and it's been actually thundering and pouring, and when it pours there's so much water that kind of cascades down this creek here. So there's like this beautiful kind of waterfall effect that comes, and it's kind of all the runoff from the main street above, but what you've got is this cool effect where all these creepers and these like moss have all grown over these rocks, and it's actually created this kind of micro environment of interactions between the plants that kind of capture the shaded light that comes from the canopy. It's actually really cool and fascinating to see. Today it's particularly hot, it's very dry, so I'm expecting plants that are kind of a little bit more resistant to the hotter weather. Something about the ground cover here is so cool. The fact that the ground cover is completely carpeted this entire area because of all the water that kind of runs off from the top of this hill. And if you look behind me, there are some really cool ferns that are just feeding off the water system that kind of flows into this main canal area. I love walking along the path and seeing really cool twisted tree trunks like this. Not only has it been worn out through weather, water, wind, and the fact that it's so smooth means it would go perfectly in a home terrarium or paludarium build, but just it kind of carves out a really cool story about the climate of this particular rainforest. This is probably one of my favorite parts of the forest, the rainforest floor. The idea that all of these plants kind of fall from seeds from the plants, fall from the trees, they kind of find a really fertile patch of soil on the ground to then try and start a new plant. The idea that they're thriving, outcompeting each other, but also just looking at how each plant adapts, whether it spreads itself out like a vine, whether it kind of climbs onto other trees. Just the whole plant world is so fascinating to see. And I love how seriously quiet it is around here, and the fact that you've got this beautiful growth that's just coming right off the edge of this rock in this big massive tree here creates this really cool arching effect, which I absolutely love in terms of just seeing how plants survive in this area. This area kind of has a bit of a mishmash of nature and urbanism. You've got this kind of urban sewer-like structure here, but then you've got this kind of rocky cliff. If you come with me, you'll see how some of the roots and the trees around here have just really adapted to. If you look really closely, there's a bug. Watch how this tree, this eucalyptus tree, has survived literally on the edge of this rock. It literally is hanging by root. these ferns need a huge amount of water. In fact, I grow some ferns around in the ponds in my backyard, and I kind of ensure that the flow of water that I have in my ponds actually feeds the ferns continually throughout the day. Here, these ferns are going to have to thrive under the very minimal sunlight, which they absolutely love, but the fact that all the water flows down from the top of that hill all the way down into the creek means they're always going to be constantly be fed. The soil is going to constantly be full of moisture, which allows them to unfurl and look as sick as this. What's really cool about this rock here is it creates like a little overhang. So when the rain falls down, it kind of leaches and leaks into this really cool shaded area underneath the rock. Now, that's not really ideal for a lot of plants, but here you've got little sprouts just growing out of the ground, literally because the water is dripping from the rock constantly, allowing it to actually grow and thrive. And eventually, once the roots are deep enough, those plants will expand and hopefully reach the light that's filtering in from the canopy. And I'm sweating so much. It is really hot today, and to think that it's actually the beginning of autumn, I just can't believe just how humid it actually is right now. Now, last year Sydney had so much rain that literally we had flooding, so it's going to be interesting to see how this year pans out. Now, if you know anything about Australia, we have particular bird life that have kind of migrated from the wetlands to kind of the main city urban area, and they're called ibises. Yes, they're actually native to Australia, but this is probably one of the rare times I've actually seen them in their normal environment. I've been along this trail quite a few times and noticed that there's a lot of lizards around. They like to sunbake during the day, and there are some pretty big ones, probably about the size of my forearm. They kind of just sit out in the sun. If you get too close, they kind of dash away. But it's really cool to see just some Australian wildlife in such a suburbanized area. And you know what? When I look around, there's not one house to be seen in sight, yet we are in the heart of Sydney. We just snuck past that cool little lizard right there, just basking on the top of that little mud dune. The grassy path or the foresty path? Now, I don't know if it's an Australian thing, but there's heaps of these spiders that kind of use leaves, and they use the leaf as a little disguise mechanism where they crawl inside the leaf, curl it up, wrap it around with web, and hopefully an unsuspecting insect will fly into the web, and then the spider will come out of the protection of the leaf to kind of consume its prey. The fact that it uses a leaf as a disguising mechanism is kind of cool and really creative, and it just shows you how cool animals can actually be. Thank you for joining me on this cool secret rainforest walk. If you really like what you've seen, please don't forget to hit the subscribe and like button. I've only just started this channel, so I really appreciate all the support. This is Danny signing out. See you for the next wild walk. Goodbye.